everybody, and welcome to Have a Chat with Cathy Mann. My name is Emily at Jaarsma, and I work at Greenway Chaplain Community Centre in Cambridge, Ontario. And we're here having a chat today to figure out how to plan and get everything in order to create a direct mail campaign.
All right. Okay. So thank you for the great intro, and welcome to those of you who are watching. So. All right, Emily, let's set the context a little bit. So you want to do direct mail. Have you ever done direct mail before for your organization?
No, we've been exploring fundraising, sort of tiptoeing around the edges with a little bit of sponsorship from our local businesses and a few donors that have given individual donations, but really excited to kind of build that donor base and explore what it means to build that direct mail campaign.
Okay. And you can just brag a little bit. You really crushed it around foundation grants this last year, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
You can brag.
Everything I learned in class last year in the program really challenged me, and being proactive this year in January, I was able to send out, I think, 17 letters and got some funds back from a variety of foundations, and that's been fantastic. And looking forward to seeing what the second half of 2021 has, and who knows what 2022 will bring.
Right on. Well, congratulations. I was really pleased. I was delighted when you sent me that email to tell me how things are going. Okay, so back to direct mail. All right, so you're dancing at the edges of fundraising. All right, let's just set the stage. So do you have a donor base where you track your donor names?
No. And I guess the other interesting piece of this is I'm working with two other neighborhood associations, and we're looking to have this direct mail campaign be kind of a collaborative project between all three sites. So this is, again, how do you work collectively with the other two? We all have a variety of lists, whether it's participant lists or volunteer lists. That's kind of where we're at, but we do not have a direct mail database.
Okay.
Greenway Chaplain has a Canada Helps page, so I have a little bit of experience of that, but not from the donor side, more the events or individual donations.
All right, the plot thickens. So not only is it direct mail, but it's collaborative direct mail. All right. Yeah. So before we even talk about the mail, let's actually talk about the thing that's going to be the hardest, and that's what you've just identified, which is how do you figure out who's going to be mailed to? I'm assuming none of you have a database, so you're all kind of working from Excel lists or MailChimp or that sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay. And do you want it to be direct mail? Like you want to write a letter, a paper letter, and send it out, or do you want to do email?
I think we're still kind of looking at both options and figuring out price-wise and all those pieces down the line. I think that there might be, and again, in 2021, in this pandemic, that there is something exciting about getting mail and that paper letter. And it's something we've never done. Yeah. And it's a kind of a neat way to connect back with perhaps a volunteer that hasn't been with us for a couple of years, or even some families that their youth have now grown up, used to come to summer camp, used to be connected in other ways, just to reach back again and make those connections again. So leaning towards the paper letter, interested potentially also in the digital.
Yeah. Oh, this is cool. I thought this was going to be about just the run-of-the-mill direct mail, but this is really cool. Okay, so a couple of thoughts. I wish Anne was here to help us because she's so brilliant on the digital side. But okay, so let's talk about the data. So one of the things you're going to have to do is we actually need to think about the mechanics of whatever way you're going to reach out to donors. And so now I'm just thinking out loud. So if you do a direct mail and you actually send a letter out to people, you're going to have to collect lists. Each of the three charities will have to put their list together. And then each group would just send out their own letters? Is that how you think you do it? Like you'd create a shared letter?
Well, I haven't figured out the end part. So I talked a little bit about, and I did have a conversation with Anne, again, just kind of on the basics of what that might look like, the data, bringing it from all those different sources, as you said, and making sure that it's in a Excel spreadsheet or something, that all the correct data is there, that the postal codes and all those are correct, and there aren't, because there might be the same volunteer at one site, might be a parent at the other site, right? So getting rid of the duplication.
Yeah.
The other piece about data? yeah, there's definitely going to have to be some cleanup on that side of things before it goes out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, this is interesting. You know, I don't like to start with the minutia or getting into the weeds,
Right.
but in some respects, it's actually good for this to get into the weeds right away, because direct mail is like the devil's really in the detail. And, you know, so let's say that you've somehow figured out everybody puts their data on an Excel spreadsheet, and you've identified all the same fields, so that when you put them all together, they magically all match. You don't have to do any wrangling with stray data. And so then if you can get up to 1,000 names, you can have a third party do your mailing for you.
Yes.
The advantage to that is it doesn't actually, at the end of the day, it doesn't cost you that much more to outsource that if you have a good letter shop, because you'll get a bulk mailing rate. So instead of spending $1 and whatever it is to mail an envelope right now, it's a little more than 50% of that. So so you're going to save, say, $400 and change on postage, and that's what it's going to cost you. That a little bit more to hire the letter shop to do the fulfillment, and then you don't have to take a letter, fold it, take a coupon, fold it, and match everything, right? So
I think for our first time, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one piece. And that's if we go the route of doing a direct mail. I mean, it's worth experimenting with direct mail. It's also worth, because there's 3 of you, it's also worth considering whether or not you want to do some sort of like unaddressed ad mail campaign where you identify postal codes and you just get, you know, everybody in the postal codes gets a dear friend letter.
Right.
The hard thing about that is you can't sort of do your own mailing and your unaddressed at the same time, because they might, you know, you might get people might get 2 letters. Although it's not the end of the world. But anyway, so that might be another campaign down the road that you do with them. Here's what I'm thinking though. This is like it won't shut up in my head, so I'm going to say it is. I wonder if what you think about doing is like create some sort of month-long digital campaign that the 3 agencies can participate in together. You know, we'll like brainstorm what the campaign is, and then the way that it would work is that there'd be a series of emails to your respective followers, and so you could each be sending it to your respective followers. You can decide if you're going to bring all the data into one place and just have one agency responsible for sending everything out. That might make more sense. But again, we get Anne in on that conversation. And so, really look at what is the initiative, and then the campaign. Not that there's any formula for this, but you know, when I've worked with clients to do this, it's sort of like, okay, so it's going to run for a month, and you're going to invite people to participate in it. They're going to get an email once a month, that kind of like a serial, right? So like a serial article where you sort of get one part of the story, and then the next part of the story, the next part of the story over the course of 4 weeks. There's going to be some stuff happening, like there'll be a runway up to the month where you start to do things. There'll be a little bit of stewardship at the tail end. You create some sort of social media activation so that you're inviting people to do things online, a la ice bucket challenge, right? So dump water over your head and invite 3 people to do it. And then what was the other piece of it? And then it's a peer-to-peer campaign, so that you're built into it is kind of this acquisition program. If 3 agencies are doing it, we're quickly going to get into the weeds of each agency. As you send out emails, this is where we need Anne. So will we have a customized URL? So Greenway has a URL that takes you to a particular Canada Helps page. Your other two agencies have their own customized URL that takes you to a customized Canada Helps page. They all look the same, except they've got it's branded with your information on it so that you know which donors are yours. So the challenge with collaboration that I see is this notion of, like you just said, the same person is on all three lists because they're volunteer in one place, a parent in another, whatever. And then, so they get emails from all of you, or they participate in the social media campaign for all of you, and only one of you might get the donation. So that turns into a bit of a tussle with groups.
What would your recommendation be from the donor's perspective? Do you think there's a preference, rather than having, here are the 3 sites you could donate to, versus Greenway is quote unquote the collector, but then it would be distributed to the other 3 sites? I mean, part of that's language, part of it's telling the part of the story. And I don't know, if the donor, if they're really like, oh, but I really like this neighborhood association, I don't want my dollars going over there. I mean, you need to be clear to them how it's going to work and where the funds are going.
From the donor's perspective, you don't want to bury them. You don't want them to be getting, if you're going to have a series of, say, 8 emails, because you're going to have a couple of teaser emails and then 4 during the month of the campaign and then some post campaign, like you don't want them getting 8 times 3. So I mean, I think that from a donor point of view, it also from the donor point of view, it's easier, it's cleaner. It also shows to the donors that you're coming together and working collaboratively. Donors love that. I think that if you can figure that out and figure out the revenue sharing model, that would be amazing.
Well, I think Canada Helps can customize the page, so that campaign, and we could show the 3 logos on the page, even if it is one URL, right? And updating the donors, and it is one space. And then, as you say, as long as the 3 organizations have an understanding before how that's all going to go and the logistics and the dollars.
So there's lots of moving parts, but the principles are the principles that I love are that you have this sort of 1 month is when you're asking people to do something. And so things that I've seen, like organizations have pivoted their events into their in-person events into virtual events. And so instead of showing up on one night and eating food, or showing up one day and doing a walk, it's like, okay, during the month of October, walk your 5 kilometers and, take pictures, instead of showing up and eating with us. Have dinner on your own, send us pictures of your great meal or whatever. You can play around with it. And so for you guys, you want it to be something that's kind of community minded. Do you have any events that you haven't been able to do because of COVID?
So usually in June is kind of neighborhood day. It's recreation month, because we're kind of a kids and youth focused organization, at least initially. Traditionally, we've at Greenway closed down the street and done a carnival block party in June. So I think that will definitely be shifted. And so maybe October is our next, is the month that we're working up to, or, maybe it'll be nice and we can be outside and be together again. And it's just a chance for people to come and celebrate on the street and, visit with those that they know and visit with others. And so again, in the past or 2 years ago, the neighborhoods had it all on the same day. So some people had events in the morning. You can go to this neighborhood and do the bike rodeo. In the afternoon, you could do a barbecue and the jumpy castles at this place. And the evening was a barbecue at that neighborhood. So encouraging neighbors to kind of explore across the city of Cambridge and have some experiences.
So I love that. Because let's say you can do it in person in October and you're collaborating with these other 2 agencies and you do that model that you just shared, you can actually turn that into a month-long digital campaign anchored with the event. So either the event is the kickoff or the event is the end.
Yep.
where you get to announce how much money you raised.
Yeah.
And then we could have a lot of fun with the online activation. So
Yep.
the online activations could be reflecting some of the things that you'll be doing on the day of. So, you know, I don't know how you get people to simulate jumping in a bouncy castle, but but you know, you can, there could be some bike stuff or some soccer things. And you know, before this recording started, you were telling me about, you kind of have this lending library of stuff, and so maybe part of the activations are, we'll come to Greenway and pick up the soccer ball and the pylons, and the activation is, you know, video yourself kicking, weaving through the ball, through the pylons of the ball, or like, I think that's, I love this. You could really pull all the stuff together that you're doing.
And everything we've seen with our families, and we know that children and youth are struggling, and the whole mental wellness and where are we at, and encouraging that, and just supporting families and off-screen time. I mean, the recreation library, that's where it came out of. How can we get more equipment and different experiences into kids' hands, and having that equipment with the activity card to kind of highlight, here's some skills you can work on. I think the link back and sharing, and could be amazing. And I think kids are really encouraged, like you know, seeing me on the TV or on the internet, it's not very exciting, but if you see a kid and they're like in and out with the soccer ball, or they're like, look, I can now bounce the badminton racket, you know, and do this piece, it's exciting. So exploring.
I love this. What I love is that I know that you have you run summer camps, and I'm a former summer camp staff and summer camp director. I know how incredibly creative summer camp staff are. So like, if you were to come up with this, so, okay, summer camp staff, here's the notion. Let's come up with ideas for social media activation. You'll get a ton of great ideas. The other thing that I want to really reinforce is the peer-to-peer component. So we just helped a client recently pivot their event into a virtual event. And it had never been a peer-to-peer thing. And so, like so much during COVID, you know, we kind of figured it out and executed it within a very short amount of time. And so one of the new elements that I kept saying, we really need to try to work this one in, was that peer-to-peer component. And so they for having not much time to pull this off, they did a good job. But what was really interesting was that the staff person who was sort of responsible for it, and who had never really been involved in peer-to-peer before, said, I did the social media activation. She said, I didn't think I was going to raise any money. I raised over $1,000.
Good for them.
And so to me, that just reinforces how powerful the peer-to-peer piece is for a fundraising organization. So make sure that, so this is my vision. This is where I think we've landed as a starting point, is, you know, you anchor it around your recreation day, where you already have your partners. You turn it into at least a month-long digital campaign, where you'll be emailing people, emailing your supporters. Those emails will both be advising them about what's going on, how they can participate, and inviting them to donate. There's going to be a social media component that will be where you'll incorporate the peer-to-peer piece of it. This is cool. Like, I actually think, you know, you should go to the city and say, we're going to do this brand new initiative that's really going to spread the notion, like, recreation throughout the city. Give us some money to help us fund to pull this off.
Do you have any, can I have one last question? Sure. Or recommendations to connect with businesses, and how do we connect them with the campaign or increase? We have some businesses, like our vendors, for example, that already connect with us and have given smaller donation for events in the past, but is there any, United Way also in our area has done things where it's the employee campaigns, you know, whether it's the bake sale, or they're doing the office chair races or different activities at their sites to kind of increase space.
Okay, I love this question. We're going to go over. We're going to take an extra 5 minutes and talk about this, because here's the thing. I think that you know, my advice at the beginning of COVID, and it continues to stay the same advice, is that, and you've probably heard me say this, don't decide for your donors. Donors have agency, they're grown-ups, they can make decisions. And one of the things that many of us have done is made the assumption that everyone is struggling financially because of COVID. Right. The truth is, lots of people are not struggling financially because of COVID. Right. My assumption is that small businesses are struggling because of COVID, especially any business that only survived because people coming into the place. So, so from that perspective, I think you want to make sure you're really sensitive about, not going to a restaurant that is barely keeping its head above water with takeout, and asking them for something else. But I mean, you're in an area where, you just told me that you have something like 4,000 tech startups in your area, right? So you do have a different kind of business environment. But here's what I would say is, think about how can you involve businesses in a way that's a win-win. And so without sharing too many trade secrets, if they're, so I had this client that did an event that was based around food. And in the past, they had a lot of restaurants support them at this event. And one of the things we talked about was, how can you support those people that have been supporting you for so long? And so part of it was around when they were reaching out to donors, it was just saying, hey, don't forget about all of these amazing partners that we've had in the past. And during the month of whatever month it was, if you're going to be getting takeout, think about these groups. So part of it is, how do you make it a win-win for the business? And if it's in person, then it's a different kettle of fish, because if the vendors can show up at your events with kiosks or something to be engaging people, that might be something that they're interested in. If they do that, how do you make sure that they get reflected in all of the emails and social media that you're doing? So how can you also help give them exposure throughout this? And then, for any small business, it really becomes a conversation with them of like, what matters to them. And so I think too often we just assume, we're just like, hey, we just need you to give us a couple of pizzas or, some free swag that we can give away. And having a conversation about like what they care about and how they're investing their marketing dollars, and to see whether or not there's any alignment might be, it'll take you longer, but it might result in richer relationships.
I've been having conversations at the Chamber of Commerce in Cambridge, and it was interesting to chat with one new local small business. So he does recycled or refurbished cell phones. And I thought, like, how can the connection be between the profit and for-profit business world? And he was just like flat out like, hey, how can we help you do your work differently? Oh, because we're kind of exploring youth development and the training piece, and what training do youth need to get that first job. But then wouldn't it be awesome that cell phone company is hiring, and they can see on there, oh, this person was a volunteer Green Bay chaplain, or they come with that reference. Like, it almost gives them an in, and the local businesses know, oh, this person's been connected. They've given their hours. There's,
Yeah. And if there's a component of your training that is related to the industry that they're hiring for, that would be great. So I think that it is a different model than like knocking on the door and saying, hey, can you give us swag? Hey, can you give us free food? And I think that now it's about, just having deeper conversations. And, but to your point, thinking differently about things, right? So how do we make this a win-win? And for bigger businesses, it might be, what do your employees care about? So for like the local bank branches, there's all kinds of programs where they give you a stipend if their staff volunteer at your event. So, you know, for the bigger businesses, look into whether or not there's some of those
Yep.
things.
Yep.
But for the smaller businesses, well, and for the smaller businesses, you really just have to talk to them, because right now it's really hard to know. Like I know,
Yeah.
you know, I know a guy who, if I hadn't talked to him, I would have thought his business would have been decimated, because he was a yoga instructor and people came to him, and he said when COVID hit, he's like, oop, I have to pivot. He went online. He has clients all over the world. He's making more money than he did, and he doesn't have the expense of a studio anymore.
Right.
So, so yeah, we can't assume that. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. 25 minutes. So we're gonna call it there.
Thanks, Cathy.
This was exciting. This was way more than I thought it was going to be. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to think creatively and challenge myself. When I just noticed my collar has been messy the whole time. Oh well, there we go.
It's all good.
Okay.
We look forward to exploring, and I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, please do. And listen, Sparkles, if you have any thoughts or any ideas that you can share with Emily to help her out, by all means, send them along either in the comment section of the Facebook group, or get in touch with Emily directly.
Thanks very much.
Emily, thank you. This has been awesome. To those of you who are watching, thank you for sticking with us all the way through. Bye, everyone.
Bye.